Hi everyone, Jennifer Blevins-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Today I want to talk about auditing your CMS Identity and Access system. If I were to ask you, do you know who has access to your CMS profile in the Identity and Access portal, would you be able to say, oh yes, I know, I've checked it, I'm comfortable with everyone who has access to my information? Most of you are probably going to go either, I have no idea what you're talking about, or no, I can't tell you because I haven't been in there in a very long time. Today, we're going to talk about why auditing this I&A system through the CMS website is super important. Unfortunately, many practices will discover access problems to their identity and access system after a staff member leaves, a vendor relationship ends, or an enrollment issue occurs. Former employees, old credentialing companies, and forgotten user accounts often retain access long after they should, and they should have been removed. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some simple ways to audit your I&A system to help protect you and your Medicare enrollment systems, reduce compliance risks, and ensure that only authorized individuals maintain access to your organization. Let's start with basics and talk about what the CMS I&A system is. Okay, the CMS Identity and Access System, or I&A, controls access to PICOS, NPPES, and the promoting interoperability systems. It was something about incentive programs, and now it's about running some reports based off of billing trends, okay? There's a few other options in there that a lot of people don't need access to, but the biggest ones are PICOS and NPPES, okay? The I&A permissions determines who can submit enrollment applications for groups and for providers. It manages provider records, updates organization information. They can add or remove users and act on behalf of the practice. Many organizations set up access once and they never review it again, and that is not the correct way to do it. If that happens over time, it creates former employees having access to things that they shouldn't, vendor accessing things or having the ability to access things that are no longer involved with the organization. It can cause duplicate accounts to be created and unknown user permissions. Every practice needs an audit of this system, and it's because staff changes creates risk. Okay, think about it. You have employees who will resign. You have providers that will retire. You have office managers who can leave. You have credentialing specialists who change roles, or you no longer work with a credentialing company. You have temporary contractors that you work with. You have people who are fired, right? Your vendor relationships can change over time. You have credentialing companies that could possibly have access to this system. You have billing vendors that would need access to the system, consultants such as myself, and temporary staff that might need help with access to this. And if you're not auditing and you're not changing their permissions regularly, you could be at risk. Unfortunately, unauthorized users could, not that they would, but they could view enrollment information, submit changes on your behalf without you knowing, receive enrollment notifications if their email address is tied to your group or providers, access the provider records, okay? So even if no malicious activity occurs, unmanaged access creates unnecessary risk. And our goal is to always eliminate unnecessary risks when we have control over that. Here are some things that you should do before you start the audit of the system, okay? First, gather all your organizational information, which you probably already have, but you want your legal business name, your tax ID, your organizational group MPI, and the provider roster that is current for the group, okay? Then build a verification list of users. So use a spreadsheet and put in their username, their email address, their roles, their departments, employment status, access needed, and access verified columns, okay? This is going to be a list you're going to use when you go into the system, so you're prepared. And then identify key personnel. Confirm who should have access now. So who is the authorized official or the AO? Who's the access manager if you have one, an AM? Who are your credentialing staff? Who's your enrollment specialist? They could be the same people. And who are your practice administrators? Then once you have all that together, you're going to start with the step-by-step auditing process that we're going to actually walk through right now. So the first step is you have to log in, and I'm going to do a separate video about some challenges you could face when trying to log in, and because there are some ways you can troubleshoot on your own before you have to escalate it with the I&A systems personnel. So first step, you're going to log into the I&A system, and you're going to access your organization's account, right? So you're going to review all the associated users, and you're going to ask yourself, do you recognize who the users are? Are they still employed with your group? Are they still providing the services in which they would need access to this? Step 2, review your authorized officials, or the AOs specifically. Verify their current ownership structure of the organization and if they're involved in it at all, and the current authorized officials' assignments within your organization, and if it reflects accurately that they should have that level of access and permissions in this system. Any red flags you should look for are former owners of the practice, retired providers, and individuals no longer affiliated with the practice. Please be mindful, the authorized official role carries significant authority and should be reviewed carefully. If you're unsure of the different roles I'm talking about as it relates to this system, make sure that you do your own diligence to understand that before you do this process. Step 3, review your access managers. Okay, that's another role in this system. The access managers can grant permissions to others. So if there's other vendors, other users that need access to this, they can grant and take away this, okay? So for all your access managers, again, you want to make sure that they're still employed with the group, that their job responsibilities still require access and this level of access and permissions, and that there are not excessive numbers of access managers. You don't want to grant everyone as an access manager because that can create a lot more compliance issues and confusion and errors to be made. So you want to limit the amount of people who are access managers on the account. Step 4, review the surrogate relationships. Okay, again, if you're not understanding what these are, you need to look up these definitions online. This is often where practices find surprises with this surrogate relationship, okay? So you want to review all that are listed, your credentialing vendors, your consultants, your enrollment contractors, third-party support organizations, and ask yourself as you review this list, is the relationship still active? Does the person still need this access, okay? And then remove any unnecessary surrogate relationships as it pertains to these people and your organization. Step 5, verify current staff access. For every active user, no matter what their role is in the system, determine what access they need as their current role in your practice and what access they actually have and change it accordingly. Provide only the access required to perform their assigned duties. It's just like HIPAA. You give the staff the permissions to fulfill their job duties and nothing more, so they don't have access to things that they shouldn't, okay? Not everyone needs full administrative permissions. It's just a fact, okay? And you need to be realistic about that. Step 6 is you have to remove unnecessary access immediately, okay? So you need to remove former employees, former vendors, duplicate users, that can happen. Unknown accounts that you're not familiar with at all, get rid of them. You can always re-add someone if you make a mistake and forget about somebody. And inactive relationships. You want to make sure also you're documenting all changes made during this audit so that it can be referenced in the future and that you feel comfortable in what was done and it's all recorded. Then what I would recommend is creating an ongoing access governance process. Okay, build access reviews into your operations, into your workflows, into your expectations. So perform reviews on this quarterly instead of waiting until something goes wrong or you think about doing it. Then semi-annually would be appropriate, obviously depending on how many changes happen in your practice, how large you are, how many people have access. Maybe quarterly is too much, so semi-annually would be appropriate. But you always want to make sure you're doing it during compliance reviews, when it's that time of year when things are being reviewed as a whole to make sure you're compliant in every aspect of the practice. You also want to make sure you audit after every major event. So if employees leave, that's a major event. New staff are hired, that's a major event. Ownership change occurs, that's a major thing to be reviewing after. If you terminate your relationship with any vendors that could have access to this, and if providers join or leave the practice. Those are all considered major events that you should trigger an audit internally on this as well. And then maintain an access log, right? You want to make sure that you're tracking who has access to this system, why access was granted, the date it was granted, the date that you removed the access is good to track as well, and who reviewed it. The name of the person who reviewed it and made the changes is also going to be important. This creates accountability and improves operational continuity. Just remember that I&A access controls critical Medicare enrollment functions. Former employees and vendors often retain access longer than expected because people forget to remove their access. Access managers and authorized officials should be reviewed carefully because of their roles and permissions. Follow the principle of least privilege required to fulfill the staff's duties. Schedule regular internal audits instead of waiting for a problem. And a simple access review can prevent enrollment disruptions and strengthen organizational security. It lessens your risk for any kind of compliance or liability. And if you haven't done this recently or you're unsure, you should definitely put this at the top of your priority list to get done as soon as possible. It shouldn't take very long, but it's super important and it's super easy to manage. Put it on your calendar to remind you till you get into the regular routine. But again, if you have an onboarding and outboarding, I guess would be, for lack of a better term right now that I can think of, for employees and providers coming in and leaving the practice, this should be part of the checklist to add of auditing and making sure things are granted when appropriate and removed when necessary. If you have any questions or comments about this, please leave that in the comments below. Smash the thumbs up button if today's video was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share this with your colleagues whom you feel would benefit. I appreciate the support, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.